And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Friday edition of our Paranormal Portal. Hope you guys are doing great. Happy Friday. It is another weekend. Another weekend has descended, and you are in it, so life has got to be pretty good. I think it's been a good Friday for me. It's been a decent week, busy week. Been working on some songwriting and stuff, so I'm also reshuffling the studio a little bit too. You'll see it in the either not by tomorrow, but probably next Wednesday. We should have the new studio set up all cooking, and hopefully that looks great. But hope you guys are hearing me okay. Let me know if you can. In both, we of course are broadcasting live on TFR Live, TFR Live and iHeart and TuneIn. And we are also simulcasting to YouTube, so we are in the YouTube stream as well. So if you're in the YouTube stream, if you can let me know if you're hearing me okay, that'd be great. And if you're in the TFR chat room, if you can let me know, that would be awesome, because I just want to bring you my best me. Welcome back, Naga. I haven't seen you for a long time. Hey, Randy. He called me Uncle Brent. That's awesome. Yeah, thanks, guys. I've heard from the TFR chat room, but have not heard from the YouTube room. So let me start by saying something. I guess maybe that'd be part of it, huh? So hope you guys are doing great. But we are, of course, had a really successful stream, I think, on Wednesday night. Don now has a camera, so we can do the 2-camera action rather than just stretching him off into the shadows behind me. But, oh, hey, Danny. Let me know if you can hear me in there, Danny, will you? I just want to make sure that the sound is coming through. That's always my big nervous beginning is the sound okay? So, oh, that's sweet. Well, tell her thank you, Naga. Lady Naga calls me that, so that's awesome. I guess I can be Uncle Brent. That's fine. But if you want to call in and be a part of the show, there is always that option here on the portal. But, oh, good, loud and clear in YouTube. Thank you. You too can call in. It's 213-233-3998. Again, 213-233-3998. Or you can call in if you're from the UK. You can call 44-203-393-2871. Again, 44-203-393-2871. And there is that new number again. It's 833-TFR Live, which equates to 833-837-5423. So there's a few ways you can get in touch with us. And, of course, you can always email me if you have some kind of paranormal story or situation that you want to share with me or with the audience and have it read on the air. That's always awesome. And you can email the show at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So that's always an option as well. And we're going to start out tonight's show with a couple of users or listeners submitted stories. And I'm really excited about that. That's just so awesome. And I've had some great dialogue with the authors, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But definitely follow us on Facebook, if you would. And it's facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. And then on YouTube, we are Paranormal Portal. So just youtube.com/Paranormal Portal. And you'll find us there. So everything's working great. Loud and clear. All right. Outstanding. And so here we are. Tonight's show, after we get through the user-submitted stories, I want to go into a show about doppelgangers, because this is a really unique phenomenon. It's one that I've heard about for years and years, and I can't say that it's really clear what the phenomenon is. And I think it could be several different phenomena, but they all may have similar characteristics or circumstances to them, but they have very different sources. And we'll get into that a little bit later when we start talking about the phenomena itself. Oh, I can start with trying this light here. I don't know. Ooh, I gotta look at my live feed. I've been working on my lighting a little bit and trying to get a good tone. I don't know if that one's better. Ooh, that's too much. Nope, that one. Okay, I'm just playing around with a little bit of lighting because I want you guys to be able to see me, because that's important. I wish I could see all you too. I wish I had a screen full of cameras to see you guys out there. And then I could scold you when you're not paying attention. No, I'm just teasing. You guys can do whatever you want. As long as you're listening to the sound of my voice, I'm absolutely honored. And I'm thrilled to be filling your ears with my voice. Let's see, what are the numbers for tonight? A little slower tonight here in the TFR stats. from iHeart and TuneIn, but the night is young. We just started, so it could be, but we're just under 3,000 listeners active right now. So, but thank you 3,000 for being here. That really means the world to me. So right away though, let's get to these listener submitted stories because I think they're really cool. I really just love this. All right, let me get to the meat of this. I should have expanded this a little bit. Here we go. Okay, so this is coming from a listener by the name of Tanner. And he said one of the most intriguing paranormal experiences I've had took place recently on January 16th of 2018, which adds even more bizarreness because every day for the past 3 months I see either 911, 9-11, or a combination of those numbers somewhere. I'm sorry, I got to lean in a little bit. This font is horribly small. Anyway, that night at about 11:30, I walked in my room and I was about to crash out when I noticed this pretty large aircraft with 2 bright red lights on each side of it fly right over the tree line about 500 yards away from my window. It was only cruising at about 40 miles per hour maybe, but I couldn't help but think that this object could go much faster. I was watching this thing fly right over some fields going south to north. It was only about 8 stories high and made no noise whatsoever. I knew at the pace it was flying that I would not have time to pull out my phone and snap a pic, so I stared at it the whole 8 seconds or so until it was gone. I knew instantly that it was not a plane, not a vehicle, and I was truly shocked that I just witnessed a UFO. Yeah, I from personal experience, I know what that feels like. The type you would see in a modern day alien movie fly basically right over my house. After it was out of sight, I went outside to try to get a better view of the sky to see if I would see another, but I did not. The next morning, it was the first thing on my mind, so as you can imagine, I wanted to tell a close buddy about it. As I was texting my friend, I flipped on the TV, as I usually do, and finished sending that text. When I looked up at the TV for the first time to see what it was on exactly, the first shot on the screen was an animated map describing the location of a previous UFO sighting in Ravenna, Ohio. At this point, I'm about scraping my underwear because I live in a very small town in Michigan named Ravenna. And I just witnessed a UFO last night, and now I'm seeing a map of my experience on TV. Laugh out loud. It was a UFO show on the History Channel, and the funny thing is, I don't even watch the History Channel, so I had no idea why it was even on. But it gets weirder somehow. So later that day, I was scrolling through Facebook, and I saw a post that somebody had shared, and apparently a much more viewed incident took place the same night. I saw a UFO near Detroit involving a red beam coming out of the sky, which started a truck on fire in someone's garage, and the police literally said it was a meteor that started the fire. There was even pictures of this that have been growing around. Later in the day, I also found out that there was another event in Michigan that took place the same night involving some sort of meteor coming down and lighting up the whole sky. This was captured on dash cam, and it made it on the news. It's nuts how the same night I saw a UFO, 2 other abnormal instances in the sky in the same state. That whole day was truly bizarre, and it's comfortably in the paranormal strange coincidental life of mine. And I know what you're feeling, because like what I saw was much smaller, and it was literally the proverbial saucers, but it was there, and it was to get a picture of it. It just, I knew I couldn't anyway, because it wasn't appearing in my naked eye. It was only peering through the infrared binoculars. But the shock, the amazing, you're almost standing outside of yourself. You're in such a state of disbelief, and to see that right in front of your face is so incredibly life altering. I mean, as I've said many times, I've had always an open mind for this to exist. I've never ruled out the possibility that it could be a real phenomenon, because for one, there's so many people that have witnessed events like this, and then even the history of it, how far back it goes, is just amazing. So this is obviously a part of our experience here in this realm. But when to actually see one was just, I don't know. I was just humming, in thought, in my adrenaline, in, the whole experience. But very cool story, Tanner, and thank you for sending it in. I'm just thrilled that you did, and I hope if you have any others that you'll send them in, because that's what this show is all about. Now, the second story that I want to read to you guys is from Taz, a listener named Taz, and she is, let's see, I gotta get to it. Okay. Now, this one is really cool. I really like this story, and she and I have been corresponding a little bit about it, and apparently this rabbit hole goes much deeper, but I will read to you what she submitted for the show. Okay. Here's one that I think you may like to know and probably can answer for me. When my mom died this last summer, a couple of days after, my sister and I went to try to clean up a bit before our siblings would arrive. A strange thing happened. Two, actually. We were not sure the cause of her death, and I don't really believe that it was concluded after 6 months of investigation. But the thing that happened was I was going to close her back door, and it slammed shut by itself. I wasn't even near it, and we had it open for a long time, and there was no wind, since summers in Arizona is hot, and we had to open it to air out the smell of the chemical they used to clean up the area. I looked at my sister and I told her I didn't do it, and she was shocked and said she saw it and knew I did not do it. She even said there's no wind and that we should hurry up. She's very religious and found our mom that Saturday, so her nerves were in bad shape already. Well, a few seconds later, someone we knew just walked in the front door in a happy, loud voice saying, "Hey guys," as if she was coming to a party. Of course, my sister and I jumped out of our skins. The gal proceeds to come up with a gruesome theory of how our mom was killed. Well, the gal was in the kitchen, and I went to give her something from the counter, and my mom's cane tripped me really bad. It was in her chair, which I walked by all afternoon and had no incident with it until I turned my back to this person. Later, I found many notes in her home how she didn't trust that person. Was she there trying to tell me something? It was really the first I believed the possibility of the ghosts. I always told my mom I'd believe it when I see it. My sister thinks it's her trying to warn us on something, but we can't figure out what. I miss her and hope she's still with me. What do you think? And of course, I have corresponded with her back and forth, and so we are discussing that. But just a phenomenal story, and clearly, the mom is definitely there and is definitely still actively involved in that situation. So amazing story, and thanks, Taz, for sending that in. That's wonderful. And so if you guys have any stories that you'd like to submit, again, please feel free to email them. The email address, again, is paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. I'll be honored if you do, because just the cool stuff. I mean, these are firsthand accounts of this phenomena that these people experience. So what could be cooler than that? So send them in. But again, if you're hearing the sound of my voice and you want to see me doing the magic that is the Paranormal Portal, come on over to youtube.com/paranormalportal and make sure you subscribe and click the like button on these videos too, because I know people always get nagged about that kind of stuff, and I understand. It's just I don't always remember to do it myself, which I should, but I watch about 500 YouTube videos per week, and I often don't remember to click like, but I realize the importance of it because it actually helps to promote the video and to promote the channel. So if you would be so kind, that'd be lovely. But anyway, tonight's show is going to be about the doppelganger phenomenon. And now, what I was saying about this, and this is what occurs to me, is that a lot of people believe the doppelganger phenomenon is simply the result of maybe a spirit personifying them, so they're putting on their face or whatever and running around. But I think that certainly can be the case in some instances. Perhaps a spirit has the ability to appear however they want. They can appear as, a shadow, as maybe a misty form. Maybe they can appear as themselves. But perhaps if they're in a house and they are manifest for whatever reason, perhaps they turn themselves into looking like another occupant of the house just to keep people cool, to keep them all mellow, because they don't want to shock people. And that's a possibility. But I think it's plenty shocking to pass your mom on the way to the kitchen and then see her out in the yard. So, which I'm sure has happened. I'm just making that one up in my head, but I'm sure it's happened. But I think also that some of these instances may be time anomalies, in that people are, for some reason, shooting either forward or backward or whatever in time, and seeing representations of themselves and doing whatever it is they're doing. So I believe some of them could be time slips or reality shifts, which is what we covered on Wednesday's show when Don was on with me. But I just think that plays in pretty well, because there are accounts of people seeing a member of their family and then seeing them again. And we went over a few of those on the show, and I thought, well, that's interesting. There could very well just be a time anomaly or a reality shift of some kind. So it could be one of either. Sorry, I'm petting my cat today, and it feels like I got cat hair on my nose, and it's driving me crazy. He's a lovely cat, but he sheds a bit. So if I'm rubbing my nose a lot, it's because I feel that tickle of those little fuzzy hairs. He's the softest thing in the world, but he seems to be blowing his coat because apparently his body thinks that spring is here, which I hope he's right. But anyway, let's get into some of these stories. And, oh snap, what the hell happened there? Let's try it again. One of the pages that I had loaded kind of crashed. So the first stories about doppelgangers I want to get into are some historical accounts, because it does show you how far back this phenomenon has been reported. And I think that certainly lends to credibility of a phenomenon, is when we have historical references along with modern day references. So the first one I want to read to you about is regarding Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Goethe, Goethe. I think that's Goethe, but it might be Goethe or something else. If I am brutalizing that name, I do apologize, but I'm not quite as worldly as I should be. But anyway, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, from 1749 to 1832, was a famous German writer, poet, and politician, a celebrated author who played a large part in shaping the field of literature. His words were widely read and respected. One day, a depressed Goethe was riding on a footpath after leaving a girl named Frederica. Suddenly, he faced a mysterious person riding toward him. The person, who Goethe said he saw was a mind's eye instead of his actual eyes, was clearly Goethe himself. Although he was wearing different clothes, the figure soon disappeared, and Goethe, who found its appearance strangely soothing, soon forgot all about it. 8 years later, he found himself riding down the same footpath in the opposite direction to see Frederica again, and that's when he realized he was wearing the exact same clothes his doppelganger wore years ago. This was not the only doppelganger Goethe saw. Another time he saw his friend, Frederick, walking on the street wearing Goethe's own dressing gown. Puzzled, Goethe went home, and only to find Frederick there wearing the same gown Goethe had seen on the apparition. His friend had been surprised by the rain and borrowed the gown as his clothes dried. Well, that's nice of him. So what could that be? Well, I think that in that case, that is a time anomaly. That's an instance where he saw himself as he would be in a future state for whatever reason, and we can only hypothesize what was going through his mind, or what the state of mind he was in that made him see that version of himself. And do those emotions also help us peer through the veil to see, alternate timelines? It's possible. Let's see, we got about 6 minutes, so I can get through Catherine the Great. Catherine the Great, the powerful 18th century empress of Russia, was a powerful and dangerous figure. She was not fazed by the small matters, such as seeing her own ghostly doppelganger take over her throne. It is said that one night Catherine was lying in bed when worried servants told her they'd just seen her enter the throne room. When Catherine set out to investigate, she found the doppelganger sitting calmly on the throne. Catherine immediately ordered her sentries to shoot at her ghostly counterpart. The stories don't tell whether the bullet had any effect or on the spectral empress. However, Catherine herself died soon afterwards. So was it a death omen? It could very well be. Well, yeah, that would make sense because in the situation of Abraham Lincoln, I think it was more of a dream though. But he dreamed he saw himself in a coffin, or perhaps he didn't dream it. I don't remember the specifics of that story, but I know somehow he viewed himself in a coffin. I thought it was through a dream, but perhaps it wasn't. Perhaps it was an waking state. But he didn't want to seem mad, so he said it was a dream. Because you might be sounding mad in those days, especially. Okay, the next is Percy Bysshe, Bysshe Shelley. Percy Bysshe Shelley was a brilliant poet in his own right, although he is mainly remembered as the husband of Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. Although one would assume that Mary, the horror writer, would have been the one to see ghosts and monsters, it was in fact Percy who witnessed doppelgangers. Shortly before Percy drowned in a sailing accident in 1812, he confessed to Mary that he had met his doppelganger many times. These confrontations included one particularly haunting experience, where he walked onto a terrace only to be greeted by his doppelganger who asked him, "How long do you mean to be content?" Because he could be incontinent. I don't know. That was funny in my head, but when I said it, it didn't sound nearly as funny. How long do you mean to be content? Strangely, Percy's doppelganger was also witnessed by her close friend, Jane Williams, who saw it passing her window and on a route frequently walked by the real Percy to a dead end, but never returning. The real Percy was nowhere near. That's very strange. Sir Frederick Carne Roche, or Carney, C-A-R-N-E, Roche. In 1906, I got 3 minutes. Yeah, I can make it, I think. In 1906, British Parliament member Sir Gilbert Parker was attending a debate when he spotted Sir Frederick Carne Roche, a fellow Parliament member, sitting nearby. This greatly surprised Sir Gilbert, as Sir Frederick was severely ill with influenza at the time. Still, he politely greeted Sir Frederick and told him, "I hope you are feeling better." Carney Roche didn't react in any way. He just sat there with a stony, grim expression on his face. When Sir Gilbert soon glanced at his friend again, the seat was completely empty. Bewildered, he searched for Carney Roche in the lobby, only to find that no one had seen him pass by. When he discussed the event with fellow parliamentarians, it turned out that others had seen Carney Roche too. When the real Carney Roche, who had been sick in bed all along, found out about the incident, he was quite unsurprised. He had really wanted to take part in the debate, so to him it made sense that his spirit had sneaked a peek. His family, however, was terrified and feared the doppelganger was a bad sign. In a small way, they were right. For quite some time, Carney Roche was annoyed by fellow Parliament members who kept poking him with their fingers to make sure he was flesh and blood. In the end, he had to write a massively sarcastic letter to a local newspaper apologizing that he didn't have the good sense to die at the time of the doppelganger sighting and promised to behave better next time. Oh, that would be annoying if people kept poking you. The next one is about Queen Elizabeth I, but I think I'll hold off on that. So, again, let me just reiterate, if you'd like to be a part of the paranormal, please do call in. Again, the phone number is 213-233-3998 or 833-837-5423, which is 833-TFR Live. It's easy to remember 833-TFR Live, but I haven't been reading that number long enough to remember what the hell that actually works out to in numbers, because I can never spell things on my phone. But again, let's see, everything's going good there. We are rocking solid tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Things are going good. Oh, Don's in the chat room. Welcome, Don. And I'm just saying hello as well there. But I really do appreciate it when you guys write in your experiences. That to me is just the cream of the crop. That's the best because those are your stories. Nobody's heard them before. And I'm really honored that you guys have trusted me. Several people have trusted me in the past. Ken, again, is another listener who constantly sends in his stories, which is wonderful. And I've really loved reading those on the air as well. So if you have a story, please feel free to drop us a note at the Paranormal Portal, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. But we're going to take a break, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. We'll be back with more of this paranormal mayhem in just a couple minutes. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Paranormal Portal. Second half hour of the show is first half hour is under our belt. It goes really quick here in the portal. It's hard to understand, but we experience time anomalies every week we do the show. But I'm glad you're slipping through time with us. So thanks for being here. Thanks for listening, and hope you're enjoying it so far. It's an interesting topic, and one we haven't covered a whole bunch on the show directly. We've covered it in many different show topics as the doppelganger phenomenon comes up under many different phenomena. It comes up during time slips or reality shifts. It comes up in hauntings. It comes up in so many different ways. But I thought it would be good just to dedicate a show to it, just to work on it and work through it with you guys and see what you think. A lot of the stories are just like, more everyday kind of stuff. It's not so much of the, oh my God, that was so creepy. It's more, I think it leaves people usually with a feeling of like head scratching, like, what exactly was that? I don't get it. So, but again, I think these phenomena are cool, incredibly cool, because I think they demonstrate the fluidity of reality. And we're so traditionally educated that, reality is just, within these boundaries, and anything else is just ridiculous silliness. It just doesn't exist. And I think that as people are resonating higher and emerging into themselves and into their reality in their mind, not in the world, but in their mind, and they're stepping outside of the boundaries of traditional thinking, people are I think, willing to look beyond. They're willing to look at new ideas and new thoughts and new possibilities, because we've as a people, as a global society, we've been stuck for a long time. And I think some of the events that are going on right now in the world all around us are some of the symptomatic byproducts of a lot of people emerging into their own consciousness and tired of the status quo, and tired of being fed thinking points, from whomever seems to be in charge. And I think people are looking around, and they're looking politically, they're looking in reality, they're looking spiritually. In so many ways, people are emerging right now into the world for the first time. And by world, I mean the truth of reality, not the cosmetic mock-up that we've been dealing with for, maybe centuries, maybe longer, maybe, it's hard to know. But I think that phenomenon such as this is a great representation of the fluidity of reality. I do believe that it can happen as a result of haunting. I think that, as I said earlier, that spirits can appear as, other people if they so choose. I think that that's well within their abilities. But I think in the case of the time slips and stuff, it's more of a profound message, because it and how do you differentiate? I don't know. I guess I would say probably the biggest way that you can differentiate in your experiences, and this goes for any phenomenon, any kind of haunting, your gut feeling. Really deep down. And for most of our lives, and I know this is true in Western society. I guess I don't know as much about, globally, but in Western society, we're really taught to ignore the intuitions. We're taught to, not feel in order to participate effectively within the world. And I think that I've only had a couple of jobs. No, I mean, I've had dozens and dozens of jobs in my life. That's not what I'm saying. But I've worked a couple of jobs where they told me specifically, pay attention to your gut feeling. Pay attention to what's going on in here. This is going to tell you. And one of those situations was working in corrections years and years ago. And it was, it really, that intuition and tuning into that really did save my bacon and other people's bacon several times, just feeling that. And so, I think that as people are emerging from these illusions and these artificial construct that's been placed on us, that now we're looking, okay, what is real now? What does it mean? And so, that's why I'm thrilled to be a part of TFR and to have my show on there, because I think that that's really a strong part of what we're doing here is we're looking at possibilities. We're looking at, potentials and ideas. And, we all have very distinct, individualized messages, but I think the common theme, and it's of course part of the namesake of the network, is truth. We're all looking for truth. And so, hopefully we're finding it, and hopefully, you're listening and we're helping you find it as well. I wish I could find that cat hair. It's really bugging the hell out of me. But anyway, what do you do? So, I don't know what you mean, Ken. I don't know. Ken just messaged something in the chat room there. I'm not sure. Oh, I get it. I don't know. Okay. Well, anyway, sorry. But we'll continue on with the show here. And first off, actually, Don, who's listening on his evening off from the Paranormal Portal, decided to send in a story. So I want to get to that one next because I didn't read it yet. But let's see what it says. And it's called The Carnival Doppelganger. Once as a kid, my parents took me to a carnival. I was 4 years old, and at the time an only child. I get in line for one of those rides where you sit inside a plastic dragon and spin the wheel to rotate yourself faster, climbing into what I assumed was an empty dragon. I was startled to see another girl already waiting for the ride to start. She looked exactly like me. We spun the wheel and stared at each other in silence without blinking for the entire duration of the ride. When it ended, we got mixed up in the shuffle and my parents started to walk away with this other little girl. I yelled for them to wait, and they turned back and saw me 20 feet behind them. They both went ghost white, and when I caught up, my doppelganger was gone. To this day, we never speak of that trip to the carnival. Yeah, that's strange. And it's on, that's one of those situations you got to wonder, was somebody trying to take over? Was somebody trying to take your spot at the dinner table? Could be, ladies and gentlemen. But, very interesting story, and thanks, Don. Appreciate that. It's nice to know you're still a part of the show, even when you're not holding a microphone. But let me continue now. I got to find out where I was. Oh, here we go. We're going to talk about Queen Elizabeth I, and I'm going through a series of these historical accounts of doppelgangers because I think it's cool to look at the stories going back into antiquity rather. Thank you. Open your mouth. Sometimes I'm trying to talk as fast as I'm thinking, and I find that I'm missing some syllables here and there, or consonants, as it were. But Queen Elizabeth I of England, who reigned from 1558 to 1603, was the last Tudor to rule the country. Widely recognized as a charismatic, level-headed, and savvy monarch, she was the kind of person one wouldn't expect to dabble with the paranormal. I don't know. I expect they all do in the monarchies. What makes it all the more scary when she claims she had witnessed her doppelganger? Or which makes it all the more scary? According to the Queen, the spectral Elizabeth was lying motionless on her bed, almost like a corpse laid out for presentation. The experience was particularly haunting because such appearances are said to be a certain sign of death. Still, it wouldn't be easy to put this down as a temporary glitch in the mind of an elderly, stressed-out ruler, if it wasn't for the fact that Elizabeth died soon after seeing the doppelganger. So, ladies and gentlemen, I guess if you see your own doppelganger, and they, especially if they're sitting motionless and looking like they're dead, that might be a premonition. Oh, Abraham Lincoln is in this one. I guess we'll get to that story more accurately relayed than what I did before. So, this one is Maria de Jesus de Agreda. I just want to look up, make sure. Nope, no calls. All right. Although doppelgangers are generally perceived as sinister, it is said that sometimes a person is not only able to control them, but use them as a sort of second body that can bilocate to other places in an instant. In the 17th century, explorers and missionaries to the New World were astonished to find that many of the tribes in New Mexico were already merrily practicing Catholicism. When questioned, the tribesmen said they had been converted by a mysterious lady in blue who taught them and even given them a number of crucifixes and other items of worship. With careful detective work, a few priests finally traced the phenomenon to Maria de Agreda, a young blue-robed Spanish nun. She claimed to have taught Christianity to the Indians by bilocating across the ocean. Mary had never left her convent and only knew the place that she had been as a savage land, but her story was enough to convince the priests. Initially, the Inquisition was extremely suspicious of Maria, but they decided to acquit her of witchcraft charges, possibly because her story was just too good to waste. Her power was declared to be of divine origin, and she became an international celebrity, the leader of her convent and authority of rambling brooks on how she acquired her powers, and an author of rambling books. This is a terrible font, so I'm struggling to read it against the white, but on how she acquired her powers. However, later in life, she changed her story multiple times. Sometimes she claimed she was pressured to say she could habitually cast her spiritual copy to another continent. Sometimes she said it was true after all. I don't know about that. Strangeness, folks. Abraham Lincoln is the next one. Abraham Lincoln was known as Honest Abe, and as such was very open about his interest in the paranormal, at least in private discussions. According to the man himself, he also experienced some paranormal activity. On the night of his first election, he took a moment to rest on his couch one evening. While lying there, he happened to glance in a mirror and saw his own visage, except that he had two faces. That's not good. A second Lincoln, pale and ghostly, was looking at him from the mirror right next to his own face. Startled, he rose from the couch, and the doppelganger disappeared. He sat back down only to see it again. Lincoln was startled, but his wife Mary was downright terrified. She was convinced the doppelganger was bad news, a certain sign that Lincoln would be reelected on the second term, possibly because two Lincolns equal 2 terms, but wouldn't survive it because the second Lincoln looked deathly. Wow. I guess it could be true. Lincoln went on to repeat the couch experiment every once in a while. He did manage to glimpse the doppelganger one more time, but after that it stopped appearing. Maybe it had delivered its message, as Lincoln indeed didn't make it through his second term. Or, maybe someone just fixed the mirror. That's hilarious. Yeah, I didn't know that story of Lincoln. So that's a new one even to me, ladies and gentlemen. So very cool account and very, very powerful symbology. That's very cool. Next one is George Tryon, Tryon. In June 22nd, 1893 was not a good day for Vice Admiral George Tryon. He was commanding 2 columns of ships off the coast of Syria when he gave a command for the columns to turn toward each other. This attempt at a majestic naval drill maneuver turned out to be an amateur mistake, as the first ships promptly rammed into each other, and one of them, the one Tryon happened to be in, sank like a stone. Tryon died knowing that he had just doomed 357 men to drown. His last words were fittingly and heartbreakingly, "It is entirely my fault." At the exact same time, Tryon's wife was holding a lavish party for their friends in their London home. Suddenly, to the guest's surprise, Tryon appeared at the party. Silently, he walked down a staircase, solemnly proceeded through the drawing room, and opened the door as if to leave, before he suddenly disappeared. He was dressed in full uniform, as if he was commanding a drill. There are some holes in the story. For instance, some say Lady Tryon was busy with the guests and never saw his doppelganger, while others claim she was one of the onlookers. Still, the tale bears eerie resemblance to an old sea tales of a sailor's fetch. And it's in quotation marks, another name for a spirit doppelganger, alerting his family upon his death. Okay, this is Guy de Maupassant. And that's me trying to sound like I know how to pronounce French names, but I think that's right. Maupassant. Hand me a croissant. Sorry. They give me the microphone, ladies and gentlemen, but they can't be responsible for what I put into it every week. Oh, God, I kill myself sometimes. Not literally. All right, French writer Guy de Maupassant is known for what is perhaps the most intimate doppelganger ever experienced on record. Towards the end of his life, he is said to have regularly interacted with his doppelganger. This eerie twin not only talked to him, but actually sat down and started dictating a short story to him. Yes, de Maupassant claimed that one of his last stories was literally ghost-written by his own ghost, no less. Wow. If that's not chilling enough, don't worry, it gets even better. The story the spirit allegedly dictated to Maupassant was the Horia, Horia, or Horla. Oh, it's Horla, Horla, an unnerving tale of a man whose sanity is slowly consumed by an evil spirit that uses him as a host. As if echoing the story of de Maupassant's mental health started deteriorating soon after finishing it. Wow. In another version of the events, the doppelganger did not dictate the book as it disappeared when the terrified de Maupassant called his servant. However, the apparition returned a few months later. It entered the writer's room, looking at him with a sad expression. Then it sat down and buried its face in its own hands, as if in despair. Convinced that the doppelganger brought news of disaster, the horrified de Maupassant's life was downhill from there. He died in an insane asylum a year later. That's not good at all. The next is Emily Sagee, Sagee. Oh, hey, Jimmy, and ladies and gentlemen, make sure to stick around after the show. Jimmy Jean is actually in the TFR Live chat room, but he will be taking you into the microcosm following the show, so stick around. It's always an epic venture with Jimmy. So, now Emily Sagee never saw her doppelganger. Everyone else did, though. Sagee worked in an exclusive girls' school. She was a very good teacher, but for some reason, she kept moving from one job to another. In 16 years, she had changed positions an impressive 19 times. In 1845, the school found out why. Sagee was allegedly the center of some very strange doppelganger activity. Her spectral twin was first seen during a class as 13 students witnessed the doppelganger standing by Sagee's side and mirroring her movements. Next, it stood behind her as she ate, pantomiming her movements. Sagee herself was completely oblivious to the apparition, despite the fact that everyone else could see it clearly. However, she did become strangely groggy and powerless during the times the doppelganger manifested, and the wraith was often seen doing things Sagee would later said she had been thinking about at the moment, suggesting that she may have some subliminal control over it. Soon the doppelganger ventured beyond Sagee's immediate vicinity. At first it appeared to a classroom full of students, sitting calmly in the teacher's chair, while Sagee herself was outside working in the garden. The few people who dared to approach the doppelganger found out they could pass through it, yet it had a texture that reminded them of thick fabric. Time went by, and the apparition became a permanent fixture of the school's life, freaking people out on a regular basis. The girls' concerned parents started removing their children from the school, although Sagee was a model employee, and all non-paranormal accounts, the headmistress had no option but to fire her and her ghostly double. That's craziness, huh? So there's some historical accounts of paranormal doppelgangers appearing. Very strange. What do they mean? It's the theme that keeps coming up over and over, though. Of course, is the idea that they are omens, and I get it that they probably could be in some circumstances, but again, that appears to be another. Now, in the case of the of the teacher we just read, that one would seem to be a projection. Now, there is bilocation, as you heard mentioned, and if you don't know what bilocation is, it's the idea that people can appear in more than one place at a time. Some have been claimed to do it very consciously and with their will, and that tends to, you'll hear a lot of those kind of stories out of the Hindu religion. Some Buddhist religion will talk about stories of bilocation, where monks will appear and disappear, and will be in one place when they're supposed to be hundreds of miles away at another place. So those stories do flow through the religious context quite a bit. But I don't know. It's hard to say because it's so dynamic a phenomenon. It happens as a result of several different things. Is it a willful manifestation? Is it an unconscious manifestation? Is it the person at all, or is it another spiritual manifestation? Is it a time slip? Is it a dimensional anomaly? So there comes the conundrum of how to identify what does the phenomena mean, but even though it has a simple name of doppelgangers. But clearly that name doesn't do justice to the whole thing, other than it's a lookalike. So other than these doppelgangers appearing identical to the people, around them, or that they mimic, the sources of this phenomenon is so very different. And this is one I have not experienced myself, although Naga in the TFR live chat room, he says that he has a doppelganger story. So we'll have to see if he's willing to share it with us tonight. Kind of put you on the spot there, Naga. But we will get into that as well if that should come to pass. I can't make people get on the show, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. But very interesting nonetheless. So these are some other stories, and this part of this article here goes into a little bit about doppelganger versus bilocation. Body doubles as a paranormal phenomenon typically manifest themselves in one of two ways. A doppelganger is a shadow self that is thought to accompany every person. Traditionally, it is said that only the owner of the doppelganger can see this phantom self, and that it can be a harbinger of death. A person's friends or family can sometimes see a doppelganger as well. The word is derived from the German term double walker. Oh, cool. I did not know that, but that's very cool. Bilocation is a psychic ability to project an image of the self in a second location. This body double known as a wraith, WRAITH, is indistinguishable from the real person and can interact with others just as the real person would. Ancient Egyptian and Norse mythology both contain references to body doubles, but doppelgangers as a phenomenon is often associated with bad omens, first became popular in mid-19th century as part of a general surge in the U.S. and Europe in interest in the paranormal. This is Emily Segui. Yeah. I'm just no, this is that's funny. I just pulled up an article that was an exact copy of the one that I just read. So you've already heard it. No reason to read it again. So we got a couple minutes before break, but let me just share you some other stories here. Oh, you got to be kidding. That's not going to do it. Sorry. This is a long one. I'm going to have to read this one after the break for sure. So I guess since we're just a minute out, I will just talk to you. So if you have another opinion about this or more information, again, I don't ever claim to be an expert on any paranormal activity or phenomenon or anything. I'm an enthusiast, and it's hard to know as much about the paranormal as, about all areas of the paranormal equally, because the paranormal field has gotten to be kind of like medicine. Back when medicine, first was, going on, the modern version of medicine that we know now, you had doctors, and they were doctors that, they were not just one kind of doctor. They were just doctors. They took care of everything. But as the medical sciences expanded, and as the the information became more and more developed and in depth regarding each of these types of medicine. So then you get into, eye, ear, nose, and throat, and then you get into pediatrics, then you get into OBGYN, and then you get into podiatry and surgeons and et cetera, et cetera. And literally it seems like the paranormal is almost becoming like that it's there's so much information coming out now, and most of it's in the form of theories. There isn't, unfortunately, a whole lot of concrete evidence that any of these can be anchored to, but people seem to have pretty good ideas about what they are. But the field is diversifying so much that we have specialists now in the paranormal, whereas, there's no longer just paranormal. Not as common anyway, but anyway, we'll be back in just a couple minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. We'll get to the second hour of the Paranormal Portal. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Truth.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. With my silence, I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness, just you dance upon my joy. Feeding me with empty promise, you're just another fucking gas. Taking off the slice of my sanity, just make sure that you're well fed.
This looks extraordinarily bad.
They linger in a perpetual dream state, a nightmare from which they cannot wake. I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that's different.
Introducing the all-new British Stream.
Her life force.
Because when it comes to great tasting water,
very strong. It's called illumination.
fill quickly and pour immediately for great tasting water.
Life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeist are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second hour of the show. And those of you on YouTube, that gap there is just me having to let the station come in and do its bumper music prior to that. So that's why I'm sitting here on camera just dorking around, because I have to wait for that before I can really start talking anyway. So I don't know. That's about as fluidly as I can figure out how to do it, but I'm sure there are better at it out there, but I'm not one of them. Not yet anyway. But I'm giving her all she's got. I did have a call come through on Skype, but I couldn't go to it and get one of the listeners on. Unfortunately, I don't think I can risk that and lose the connection, because the way that this is all set up, I have to do group calls, and I've got a new version of Skype on top of that, and it's really screwed me up as far as knowing how to do anything. So unfortunately, I couldn't do that. I had to let that one go, but we almost had some listener participation here on the show, but I had to reject it. But anyway, tonight's theme is doppelgangers, and we've certainly got into quite a bit of that, but I'm just looking through these other sources of stuff that I've pulled up, and hopefully we can go into some of these. Oh, where's that long story? I had a long story, didn't I? I'll get it together here eventually. So this is a long story, and now that we have time, I'll be able to read through this, and we'll see what you guys think of this one. I thought I zoomed this in once, but I'm going to have to expand it a little bit again. I did. I'm going to do it again, though, because it's really small font, and it's so much fun reading micro font on a screen. My screen's pretty good size, but even with, some of these pages are just like they're made for Windows 95 or something. I don't know how the hell they do it, but this is from 2013, and it says, "My childhood was made for this thread," and it's talking about doppelgangers. And when I was a child, I think I was around 6 or 7, it was just me, my mom, and my brother, who was 2 years younger than me. We happened to live in a house where my mother and my mother's grandparents lived when my mother was a child. Every night for probably 6 months, I would be visited by this old man whose name I did not know, and he always had a dog with him. He would just hover above my bed and talk to me. But he would always call me Carrie, which is my mother's name. Every morning I would wake up and tell my mom about the conversations with the old man, and I would describe him to a T. He always wore the same thing. I can't remember what it is now, but one day my mother and I were going through old photo albums, and I spotted the man that always visited me. Without having any idea who it was, I picked out the picture of my mom's grandfather, who to my mother's account matched my description perfectly. I was certain that this was the man I'd been talking to, and I was excited to tell him, but he never came around again. On another occasion, I woke to what I thought was my mom opening my door and talking to me, but when my mom really came in to wake me up about an hour later, she was wearing a totally different outfit and denied ever coming into my room that morning to talk to me. I've never been able to figure that one out. All throughout my life, I feel as if I've been followed by, it says my, but I think they meant by these strange things that I cannot explain. When I was a child, I thought it was fun, but now that I'm older, it's just really scary. I used to feel safe with these things around me, but now I feel afraid. Especially at night, I always feel as if there's something big and scary watching me, and in my heart, I feel terrified. Although I started feeling terrified before this, in the last 5 years, I've experienced what I think is sleep paralysis a number of times. I don't see anything scary during this. I just get a feeling of overwhelming pressure over my entire body, along with a suffocating feeling. Usually I struggle to just move my fingertips. I know this sounds crazy, but it feels like something is trying to pull my soul out and push a new one in. So I fight it as hard as I can, and eventually it just stops, and I can move again. And I just sit there terrified for the rest of the night with all the lights on, and my happy/funny/ghost stories just turned into a terrified rant. Go figure. Another person said, I don't know what this means. Had a fun ghost visit as a child from my great-grandfather, and that died when my mom was around 8 years old. After he left, I got bad visits and terrifying things that I can't explain. So in this case, I don't know what it is, but I think that children are probably more trusting, and maybe that's part of the issue, that she wasn't freaked out as a child, even though she had a man floating over her bed talking to her. But her intuition, of course, was that it was okay, and it turned out to be her great-grandfather. But then she's experienced all these things throughout life, but as she's older, now they terrify her. And to me, I struggle to understand that. Is it because of religious overtones? Is it because of she somewhere learned that she should be afraid of these things, or has her intuition of them changed? I don't know. But I would feel it was really tragic if it was a belief system that she decided to buy into, rather than an actual bad feeling. Because and please believe me, I have nothing against organized religion. I love all religions. I think they're beautiful. They're people's attempts to understand divinity. And that in and of itself is a wonderful undertaking. But the problem is that you can never really put the divine in human terms, in human understanding. And so the problem with those same religions trying to understand divinity is that they try to break divinity into human terms, and then it becomes corrupted. And I don't think you can. I don't think you can explain divinity. I don't think you can put words to it. So they put all this symbology and all this ideas of good, bad, heaven, hell, and angels, demons, etc., etc., etc. And so these are, the problem with religion is that it becomes, it takes the divinity and forces it into human terms, and that's where it becomes wrong. I don't know how else to say that, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody. It's not my intent to. Again, I think religion is a beautiful thing, and I think having a faith is incredibly beautiful, but I just think that, so many times and so many things have come about as a result of religion that are not good, and that have caused distinction between people, and raising some up and throwing some down, and and creating division in what should be unity. So I don't know, just my 2 cents, and I'm probably probably not a good idea to share too much of that, because I never want to alienate anybody, and I never want anybody to feel like they have to defend their religion to me. They don't have to. I love religion. I think it's beautiful, but it's just that it's the explaining of the divine in human terms that causes it all to fall down for me personally. And that's why I had to, figure my own version of that for me. And, I do have a strong faith. I really do. And I truly believe there is a wonderful, loving, overseer to all this. And I think that we are, on a journey to get back to that. But I don't pretend that my vision and my beliefs need to be anybody else's. It's just how I understand it. So if this person learned to be afraid because they felt they were supposed to, then that's really sad. That's really tragic. The next one is turned a corner to see my grandfather standing in the middle of an aisle. This happened to me once in high school. I was in a grocery store and turned a corner to see my grandfather standing in the middle of an aisle. Seeing as how he lived about 1,000 miles away, I was stunned. He looked up at me, widened his eyes, and gave me the most heartfelt hi I've ever received. After returning the greeting, he put his arm on my shoulder and I asked how he'd been doing. The second he touched me, something changed. After staring at each other, we simultaneously realized we were complete strangers. The craziest part was, the instant we realized we didn't know each other, he stopped looking like my grandfather, as if his face changed. Freaks me the hell out to this day. Wow. Very bizarre. Oh, we do have a caller, ladies and gentlemen. Let's make this guy earn his keep. Hey, Anaga, you're on the air. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Are you there?
Yes, sir. I am.
Welcome to the show, brother. How you been?
It's been a long while.
It has been. I've missed you, man. I'm glad to see you're back, though. So, what's going on in your world?
I had some black mold problems in the house and a lot of financials, so I had to.
I'm sorry.
Things happen. It's
Yeah,
Florida. We're a moist climate. We get mold. It is what it is. I had to fight a very long. What do they call that? Long conjunctivitis or something like that. It was crazy.
Oh no!
I've got an inhaler now because I had mild asthma, and they're like, "Oh, now you have asthma." Yeah, well, the
Welcome to the club. I got one.
Rocks.
I got one in the drawer right under me.
Yeah. Unless I'm dying, I'm not using it. I'm sorry. I don't believe in modern medicine like the way people normally do. I just can't have it. I'm sorry.
I understand, brother.
But no, the doppelganger thing. It was really funny. It's crazy. About 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was really, really insane. I went to work. I'm one of those people. People could tell you, I'm one of those. Unless I'm dying, you wouldn't believe that I was out or I called out or anything like that for work.
Uh-huh.
It was really strange. I there was a guy that moved in apparently not even, I think, about 10 minutes from where I live, and I finally met the guy, by the way.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. This is one of those stories when I was working for Lockheed Martin. It was really crazy. I was sick, and they swore up and down for 3 days out of the 7 days that I was sick that I was actually working.
Oh, really?
Really insane. This is not one of those, you met a guy, you saw a guy who might look like you. They swore up and down there was a guy that worked for me, which was really crazy because he had a completely different name, completely different culture, and completely hired in a totally different time.
Wow.
They swore up and down. They put his hard work on my back.
Oh.
It freaked me out. I had no idea. And the only reason I was aware of this is I had a couple of guys that worked on the grounds with me. Mm-hmm. And he did kind of close to the work of us, but not exactly the work that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I don't want to get too particular, but what was really funny was that I was given 3 days worth of work out of 7 that I was out. And what was really weird is I had no idea there was a guy that looked literally exactly like me, and we had nothing in common, nothing hereditary, nothing racially, nothing.
Huh.
This guy was, I want to think from Kuala Lumpur.
Oh, okay. Kuala Lumpur.
I come from Japanese and Polish background and Russian, which was really funny. Is that people always laugh that oh, you look like Mexican. And I was like, oh, that's funny. This guy, literally, me and him, you would have sworn we had the same parents. He was almost the same age.
Wow.
Same. I mean, we literally looked like we came from the same mother. I mean, if I gave you a picture of me and him, you'd have sworn we were from the same parents. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it,
So you
which was really crazy because I didn't realize. I had no idea. I had no idea
Wow.
this guy even existed.
Did you get to meet him then after all this?
It was about a couple of weeks. Yeah, yes, I did. It was a couple of weeks after I came back. I know it was really bad. I think it was the flu was coming around in Georgia back in the time, and I was really, really sick. And I sat there and they paid me. I'll take a couple extra dollars here and there, and I'm not going to complain. But when you have 3 days of paid that you didn't do, you kind of look at the guy like, okay, I was only, I was six, seven out of the days. And then he was like, no, you were only 6'4". And I was like, wait a minute, what? They literally had no idea. They literally saw the guy on the floor. This is what told me that managers really don't pay attention. They literally saw a guy that looked like me on the same floor ground that was working in the general area, and they swore up and down that I was working.
Oh my God.
That's how bad that was.
That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I was literally getting paid from a man's back that was not me, and I literally had to go in, and I told him I felt so bad, and which is like you said, I didn't know the guy existed, but I literally met him. I think was it about maybe 4 or 5 weeks later, because one of the guys because I was working in the machinist department back in the day, and they told me, hey, there's a guy that works in the cleanup department that looks exactly like you. And I was like, there's no way. I've never met a guy. When you come from multiple cultures, like, there's no way that the genetic, slot machine could just pop out another person like you. There's almost no way.
Yeah.
And then you look at this guy, and we looked, outside of hair color, we were almost exactly the same. It was really scary. It freaked me out. And I told the guy, I was like, do you realize it was funny. I told him, do you realize I just got paid for 3 days? And I had to pay it back. I mean, I did pay it back.
Oh, okay.
It was not a problem to me.
Sure.
But it was one of those, I told him, I was like, do you realize I almost got paid for 3 days of work because you were there 3 days that I was supposed to be on schedule because they thought they saw me working on the floor? He had no clue.
Wow.
The guy barely spoke English, but it was so funny because I told the guy, I was like, oh, I'm almost surprised. You know what? I think if I was there and he wasn't, I was like, I'm not 100% sure that it wouldn't have gone both ways.
Right.
I don't think they would have recognized. He was so confused, but as was I.
Wow.
But in a corporation, you would think that in an airport so small, I mean, and I say airport, but it's an airfield for, obviously in Georgia. You have to sit there and be like, okay, there's only a couple thousand people.
Well, yeah. What are
how
the
many
odds?
people can honestly, how many people could truly, honestly sit there and give I would say that if I gave him my employee ID and he gave me his, I don't think anybody would have known at the gates. They'd have been like, yeah, sure, close enough.
Wow.
It was so weird. And I didn't believe in doppelgangers. I'd always heard people look like you, things like that. And I was like, wow, if I didn't come from the United States, I wonder if maybe this was the same guy that I could have been. I don't know.
Wow.
He was so convincing. I mean, and normally you don't even get to meet your doppelganger. You hear stories of your doppelganger.
Yeah. Sure.
But when you get to go face to face with your doppelganger, you're like, holy crap! It's literally looking like a mirror. You're like, wow, that I believe it.
Right.
And when you believe it, who else is not going to believe it? And it was a really weird scenario. It was the weirdest 3 years I've ever had of working anywhere. The guys, I think he's probably still working there today, but it was just so strange looking at a guy that looked exactly like you.
Yeah. And even though it's not really...
Not even from the same anything.
Yeah. Yours is just a biological, almost carbon copy, but, not paranormal in nature, but still a very cool experience. Very wild.
Yeah, it was very strange. The weirdest part, he just struck me as me and him almost had the exact. It was carbon copy to the point where me and him had the same interest. That's what weirded me out the most.
Oh,
as
wow.
I got to know the guy while I was there, we had the same interests. We had the same, looks on things and life. It was, yeah, no. That's what scared me more than anything. The physical thing I can get over because there's a million people. I always tell people, like, if you look at somebody who has a little bit of Down syndrome or, things like that, there's a little bit of things that give away. Or if you're from Asians, there's a lot of Asian things that go, like, in Latino, there's a lot of things that go with certain cultures or certain things. But when somebody has almost the exact same personality as you, that's what freaks you out. Because you're like, okay, that's literally me from another place. Now you're a little terrified. That's what I tell people all the time. When you see a doppelganger that looks almost like you or you represents you, that's one thing. But when you get to know the person, be a little scared. They might actually be almost a carbon copy of you.
Yeah. Well, that's a really cool story, though. I mean, because who has an opportunity? Like you say, I've said that I look like several people, and I've had people come up to me out of the blue, thinking I was somebody else. And
oh yeah.
So I mean, I know that I look very similar, or did look very similar, to a few different people. I don't know what the hell the deal is, but yeah, in those situations, it's like, I never did have a chance to meet them. And so to actually be able to sit down and, have a chat and stuff would be really cool. But to find out that there's more than just a cosmetic similarity, you're right, that would be a little unnerving. And then then you have to wonder, am I an NPC?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, that's why I always laugh when Lady Naga, she sits there and calls you Uncle Brent, because she calls you Uncle Brent. But if you ever see the picture of one of her uncles, you literally look. I mean, you guys are completely different as far as personalities, as far as I can tell. But the
he's
physical
really
appearance,
he's really handsome too, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But he looks physically almost everything like you, and he's actually an uncle. So that was what she always used to say. It was, hey, is Uncle Brent on? And I said, absolutely. And so it just became, you were Uncle Brent. And that's why I always laugh, is when you're on and when we're available, obviously, because we've been off for a little while, but
yeah,
Uncle Brent is Uncle Brent. But it's very strange, because I always tell people, some things you don't understand, but some things you don't even realize it till you look at it too hard.
Yeah, well, that's true. I
And
mean,
literally, you look. I mean, if I showed you a picture, and maybe I'll try to see if she can give you a picture, you look dead on.
wow,
Dead on.
yeah, I'd love
So
to see a
she's
picture
just-
of
she
the guy.
just
That'd be cool.
Immediately accepts you. She's like, hey, you're just Uncle Brent. This is what it is. She's Uncle Brent. She likes nighttime stories. She likes weird, crazy stories. And so you're pretty much, if the guy wasn't, if you guys didn't have the exact same, you're pretty much what she would want. Because she's like, hey, you're looking exactly the same, but hey, we like paranormal stuff, so it works for her.
Well,
It's just very funny.
well, outstanding, brother.
That's where the nickname came from, if you ever wanted to know. It's exactly where it came from.
Well, I
It
want
looks
you to
exactly like somebody from her family.
well, definitely send me a picture. I definitely want to see this guy, and it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get one.
Okay, brother. Well, thank you so much for calling in. It's great to
All
hear
right,
from you
boss man.
again, and tell the missus hello, and you have a great night, brother.
All right, you too, boss man.
Okay, see you now. Very cool. Always love getting calls, and that's Naga. He's been a friend and supporter of the show for a long time, and I hadn't talked to him for a while, so it's always cool when people make their way back and say hello, and that is a cool story, and again, it's not necessarily paranormal in nature, but it does make you wonder. And one thing that I've noticed, and I'm not sure if this is directly related or not, and it probably is going to be a topic that I probably should get into on the other side of the break, so I'll do that. I'll hold off on these thoughts until we come back from our last half-hour break of the night. But I've had some experiences of basically what happened is I moved from the Minnesota all the way out to northern Idaho, the north tip of Idaho, and I noticed something because I'd really been in the Minnesota area my whole life, really, except for odd ventures here and there for short periods of time, but. since moving out here, I've experienced a phenomenon, and I want to hear if you guys maybe have any experience with this as well and what you think about it. So we'll get to that a little bit on the other side. And this is more me asking you guys, because it's more of a new revelation to me, and I'm not sure what to think about it. But anyway, make sure that you guys are subscribing to our YouTube page, ladies and gentlemen. We're really working hard on getting this to grow, getting it to grow as huge as we can, because it's really exciting time in the portal right now for us, because a lot of the labors that we put into it are really paying off, and you guys are spreading the word and you're helping us grow so much. But if you like these videos, if you like these shows, if you like TFR, definitely spread the word and let people know, and we'll see how big we can make it. But we'll be right back after this quick break, and we will continue for the last half hour of the show. Don't go away.
Tell me about the waters of your homeland, Morty.
is Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the last half hour of the show tonight. It's gone pretty quickly. Hope you're enjoying it. Hope you guys have enjoyed the whole thing. And I'm just checking out one thing quickly here. Yeah, the numbers are holding steady. Still about 3,000 people in here listening. So thank you a bunch. I appreciate it immensely. And again, if you're listening to us from TuneIn or iHeartRadio, please, feel free to go over to youtube.com/Paranormal Portal, and you can see this happening in real time, which I don't know. To me, it's kind of cool. I guess when I'm listening to podcasts or whatever, I like to, see what's going on, where the hosts are and stuff. So maybe you're not, maybe that's not your thing, but in any case, excuse me, Coca-Cola kicking it back. But tonight we are going over stories of doppelgangers. And before break, I had mentioned that I had this experience, and I wanted to share it with you guys. And this is kind of one of those things where I've not really shared this with anybody else, and so I'm kind of throwing it out there to you guys. And I hope that, if you have any similar experiences or any similar thoughts or an opposing thought about it, that you'll definitely email me in the show at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com and let me know your thoughts about this. But essentially what happened was, as I stated, I used to lived pretty much the entirety of my life in Minnesota, just south of the Twin Cities on the Mississippi River, and it was a beautiful place, and I loved it dearly, and it's where my family is, and it was fantastic. But what had essentially happened was, the home I was living in, we lived right on the Mississippi River, and it had flooded once, and we dealt with it, and then a couple of years later it flooded again, and then this last time it just flooded again, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep putting everything in boxes. Basically, it's like moving. You're putting all of your life in boxes because you live on an area where the floodwaters can enter. And don't get me wrong, it's not like those terrifying floods you see on TV, like, oh my God, here comes the river. It's like it crawls up slowly over a period of days or weeks, and it usually happens as a result of a heavy winter or heavy rains. If there's periods of heavy rains, and it'll, all those things drain into the Mississippi, and then, it just causes the river levels to flow, or to rise. And we had just been flooded out for the third time in just a number of years. And it was like, we can't keep doing this. And essentially I worked for a company, and the owner said, why don't you come out here? And I was working with him about developing an idea that I had. And so it was like, yeah, you know what? He was willing to pay for for it. It was an amazing opportunity. And I thought, what? Why not? So I moved out here, and it's beautiful out here. I love it here as well. And it's been an amazing experience. But one thing I noticed, which I had never had this opportunity before, because I've never really moved away from home for any long period of time. But what had happened was, I moved out here, and I knew nobody. I knew absolutely nobody out here. But I was in the grocery store, and I guess it was one of the first time. It wasn't the first time I was at the grocery store, but it was one of the first times that I had really started looking around, not knowing anybody. And the funny thing was, is I started seeing faces of people I knew, and it wasn't identical, but there was these character. I don't know what I'm saying. There was characteristics. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry, this was gone. There were characteristics of all of these people that I was seeing that totally mirrored people that I knew back home. And it was funny because you see those same faces and shapes of faces, and the same jaw lines as somebody, and same eyes, and it could be part of the face or all of the face looked very similar, not to the point of being a twin, but just like, oh, that's a guy just like this, and that's a guy just like that. And so I saw it, and I was thinking, there is only a finite number of faces out there. There's only a finite number of characteristics that people can have. And it seems that for me, what I had experienced is, I moved to this whole new area, knew nobody, and I started seeing their faces were used again, of these people that I knew. And the funny thing was, is as I spent time hearing these people and getting to know a few of them, they were very similar in a lot of ways to the people that I had known. The people that they reminded me of they were very similar people. And it was like, to me, it was like, is there a physical representation that people bring into their body that reflects the type of person they are, their spiritual reality? And, so in other words, we all know that one person who loves to gossip, and they usually have this kind of body, and they just love to stir up things and, cause problems. And they have these features. Well, then, finding similar people out here that look very similar to that, behave very similar. So it was like I was seeing these people were almost duplicated, and for lack of another term, and I don't mean to create a real X-Files out of this at all. And that's not what I'm trying to say, but I'm trying to say, does the spiritual personality type, spiritual, maybe psychological or whatever, does that have a physical effect? Now, of course, we get certain traits and looks from bloodlines, from family lines. And as Naga was saying on his phone call, he is of this descent, and he went into Japanese and, Polish descent. So that, of course, he has physical characteristics that match that descent, his ancestral descent. But what he found, and this kind of was what made me think of this theory again, was that he found somebody that looked nearly identical to him. And then getting to know the person, he found that this nearly identical person was nearly identical in so many other ways. And so does that translate? Does that personality type create that kind of look? Does that personality create that kind of jawline? Does that personality create that kind of, physical characteristics that are not necessarily inherited as far as a genetic lineage? I don't know. It's just such a bizarre topic and a bizarre thought, but I'm putting it out there to you guys. If you get a chance, email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com and let me know your thoughts about that. Or if email me if you're just like, what the hell was that all about? I don't get it. Because I'm just talking on the fly here. I'm just thinking about it. And it really came up when I was taking that phone call. And it just really occurred to me. It's like, is there something to this? At the time, for me, it was more of a, well, that's kind of strange. That person's really like this, and they're really like that person back home, and they look like them as well. And now there were behavioral characteristics that were so similar. And it actually, what it ended up doing for me was it helped me to form pretty good relationships here, because I picked people that looked like people I liked back home. And it turns out that they're very similar in a lot of ways. They have those same characteristics, those same, the same people you can count on, look the same and act the same. And, obviously everybody's different and individual, and I don't mean to imply that. Although for some NPCs, perhaps it is just literally a carbon copy. Like, let's put a Bert over here because there's one over there and they won't run into each other. Perhaps there's a design as well on that extent. I'd not thought too much about that, but I'm putting it out there because, of course, that falls into a lot of the ideology that's used in Beyond the Veil, and perhaps that is a similarity. But let me know if you guys wouldn't mind. I would love to hear your feedback on that. I've never done that before on the show, asked a question of the listeners, but I'd love to hear what you guys have to say to that. So if you don't mind, email me. Again, it's paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Tell me what you think, if there's something to that, or am I really in need of meds? You guys let me know. Let me know what you think. But I'm throwing it out there. I'm putting it out there for the team. So getting back to our stories tonight, we are talking about doppelgangers here on the portal, and hoping you're finding this at least interesting. I certainly do. And again, it's not just one kind of source. This is one of those paranormal phenomenon that has about 15 other causations that's causing these mirrors to happen. Are they premonitory? Are they omens of bad things coming? Is it just a spirit trying to screw with people? So it appears like other people. Is it a time slip? Is it an alternate reality that you're shifting through so that you're seeing people in different locations? In so many other things. Is it demonic? Again, that would be more spiritual again, but it's not necessarily, they're not always demonic. So there's a lot of causations for this phenomenon, but it's a phenomenon that's been around for, pretty much as long as there's been recorded history. So, all right, we talked about the grandpa. Now let's go into this one. It's called walkie-talkies. My little sister, call her Susie, and I were exploring the cottage a few years ago and came across a pair of walkie-talkies. Now, this in and of itself was not unusual. It's an isolated, sprawling place shared by many friends and family who often leave things behind as they come and go. We run around in the night trying them out and find there's about a 10 to 20 meter range, cutoff range. We're fooling around, and eventually we're on opposite sides of the house when something like the following exchange goes down. Me, breaker, breaker, come in. This is Thundercat, over. Susie, giggling. This is Dragon 7. We are closing in on your location, over. Me, negative. You'll never catch me. Thundercat out. Susie, giggling. Who is this? Me, this is Thundercat. Come in, Poop Smith. Susie, giggling. No, who is this? At this point, I walk into the next room and see Susie looking through a bookshelf, walkie-talkie abandoned on the floor. She says hello to me, and the giggling is still coming from the walkie-talkie. I look at her, I look at the walkie-talkie and ask, wait, who is this? The giggling stops on the other end of the line. There's nothing but dead air. The next house is a couple kilometers away, and there's nothing but woods and a spooky cave around us. Susie says she got bored of the walkie-talkie a while ago and denies any part in the goofy codename conversation. We search the place from top to bottom and find no one and nothing that could have been making the call. We try the walkie-talkie a few more times, but are never able to raise our ghost girl again. I still accuse her of having been the voice on the other end of the line in a while, but deep down, I know that when I told her what went down, she showed real fear. Very creepy. But, the doppelganger in voice, but not necessarily appearance. But that I would be pretty sure was a spirit screwing with them. Possibly negative. Don't know, but definitely enough to cause him to not like to play with walkie-talkies again, I guess. He was looking so strangely at me that it started to scare me. My dad used to get up around 3 a.m. every morning for work. Starting at a very early age, I would wake up on my own and wander downstairs to see him before he left. One evening, when I was about 4 years old, I made it to the bottom of the stairs and noticed that the front door was ajar. I opened it and saw my father in his favorite work shirt making his way down the driveway to his truck in his typical work outfit, plaid shirt and dickies. I swung the door open wide and yelled for him to come back for a hug before he left. He slowly turned around and just stared at me and started walking back towards the house. He was looking so strangely at me that it started to scare me, and I began crying and asking what was wrong. Just as he had almost reached me, a pair of arms encircled me from behind in a bear hug. I turned my head to see my understandably freaked out father staring at his doppelganger in the same outfit. The double took one look at my dad and ran down the driveway. Meanwhile, my dad yanked me in the house and locked the door. Weirdest morning ever. Never did quite figure that one out. I would not trust my 4-year-old memory of the event if it wasn't also witnessed by my father. He won't really talk about it these days, but my mom has since told me that he called out of work and spent the day reassuring him, she spent the day reassuring him he wasn't a nutcase. It says, oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Very, very wild. That's very creepy, because if you see yourself and you just turn around and stare blankly, that's just weird. If there's no emotion in there, then you got to wonder what the hell's up. NPC, anyway. This happened to my brother. I was taking a nap upstairs when I heard him yell, Hey, what? Hey, Delta ETA 395. What are you doing? I go downstairs where I meet him, his face in a state of terror. What? At that point, the bathroom door at the end of the hall downstairs closed, and hard. We were the only two home. He said he saw me walk by him when he was in the kitchen and gave him a creepy smile. He then asked what I was doing, and I kept walking. That's when he heard me and heard me ask what, and turned around to see me at the bottom of the stairs. Bathroom door closes next. Very creepy. This is another story. 2 years ago, my boyfriend killed himself. Oh, that's horrible. On the night that he did it, I was sitting in my car outside of the apartment waiting for him. He texted me and said he was on his way. From across the lot, I see him, so I get out of my car and start walking towards him. After about 3 steps, I realize that he's walking in the other direction, so I yelled out his name, James, but he didn't turn around. Right as I was about to catch up to him, he rounded the corner. Where I came around the corner, there was no one there. I had seen his face when I first saw him across the lot, I'm sure of it. It was dark, but I know it was him. Fast forward to the next morning, after me calling him all night, I get a call from his brother telling me what happened. It was at the same time that I saw him in the parking lot. And those kind of things I don't think are necessarily doppelgangers. I just think that those are a spiritual visitation. Clearly he was saying goodbye or being demonstrated that, he was gone. So I think that that's more spiritual in nature and not necessarily a doppelganger, because he was probably, doing the deed right after he last texted, and that was his spirit walking out. This is another story. We got about 9 minutes left. We're good. I was maybe 9 years old when this happened. Had a relative who had recently moved neighborhoods, and I, being the oldest of 3 girls, got to have my own bedroom. I had my great-grandfather's full bed in the middle of the square room, and I loved it. One night I woke up sometime around 2 to 4 a.m. and saw my mom standing in my doorway. Something about her was off. I don't remember anymore if she was pale and translucent or silver, or how she specifically looked, but she was standing in my doorway, staring at the wall across from her. I asked Mom, thinking that she had come back in to tuck me in. She started slowly walking down along the edge of my bed, and the whole time I was chanting, Mom, Mom, Mom. She never registered a word. She turned the corner and started walking up towards the head of my bed, still very slow, and when she reached about the pillow area where I was curled, she started to slowly tilt her head down and look at me, and vanished. I freaked out immediately and jumped out of bed and ran to my parents' room. Their sliding door was shut, so I opened it quietly and saw my parents fast asleep. The light on next to my mom's side where she had been reading a book and passed out. It was even open to a page on her arm where it slipped from her hand. I know for a fact that she did not physically get up and had not been in my room. And to this day it creeps me out. When I remember that slow pace, just walking around my room, that's all kinds of screwed up. Another story in the same house, but while we were in the process of moving in, we bought the house from a man who died from a heart attack. It was a fixer-upper, and we had only been in the house a few nights. I woke up, again, 2 to 4 a.m., really thirsty, so I went down the hall into the kitchen to get some water. There was a split at the end of the hallway where you can go right into the kitchen or left into the front room. I noticed something out of the corner of my eye, and I discovered our rocking chair was moving. I assumed maybe my cat had jumped off of it, but then I remembered that she was sleeping on my bed. I grabbed the water, peeked around the corner to look into the room again, and I saw the rocking chair still rocking. There was a mirror on the wall opposite to the chair, and I could see this faint outline of a person in the mirror, rocking in the chair. I heard a little whisper, "Good night," and then the rocking chair slowed, like someone had left it. I was oddly not scared, just kind of soothed, and I was suddenly very tired, and I'm not sure why. The next day I asked my mother about the man that owned the house. She said that the hospice workers had found him dead in his favorite rocking chair in the front room, and that he had been a nice old man. I guess that's why he didn't scare me. Yeah, that's a cool story. Very cool story, but the mother doppelganger is very, very creepy. That's all kinds of creepy. Oh, you're welcome. Politish. Welcome. I haven't seen you before, but I'm so thrilled that you're here in the TFR chat room. Anytime. I'm glad to have been here and doing the show. Thank you for being here and being a part of it. That's awesome. All right. On the Roof is next. Not nursing related, but both are RN now. I was about the age of 10 and stayed home from school for being sick. Me and my sister have always been best friends. Well, she decided to stay home as well. I think she was 20 and in college at the time. And I wanted to play hide and seek in our backyard. It was around 2 p.m., sun up and clear day. After I was counting, I began to look for her and found her smiling at me on top of the garage roof. Me thinking it was odd she was up there and said, "Come down." She just smiled. I then hear someone behind me saying, "Who are you talking to?" It was my sister. To this day, I have no idea what it was on the garage. House is about 50 years old. We lived in it for about 30 years. Someone apparently died in a fire in that garage, and you can still see the burn marks on the old wood. Yeah, that that's not I mean, it doesn't necessarily sound scary. It's creepy, but I don't know, wouldn't you just be like, I don't ever trust anything I see ever again? Well, I think I would be if I saw something like that happen. I'd be like, okay, I can't trust my eyes anymore ever. That's just me though. I woke up in the middle of the night, walked out in the living room and saw my dad slumped over and walking to the front door. I just stood there and watched, and he walked outside and sat down on the sidewalk that went up to the front door. I watched him through the window. For a second, he just sat there, staring into a tree with no expression on his face. He looked really pale and almost bluish. I then walked down to my parents' room and I woke up my mom and asked her why Dad was sitting outside. Then, I will never forget it, she said, "What are you talking about? He's right here." And then I looked over, and my dad was laying asleep on the bed. Still scares me to think about it. Well, at least this person didn't go outside too. She did the right thing, or he did the right thing. I don't know if it's a boy or girl, but yeah, the old getting lured outside kind of thing is never good. The next one is the doppelganger incident has happened to me with my sibling before too. It is intense just because you're so sure they walked in and there's no way they could have. I was home alone and napping on the couch when I woke up to get some water. I sit back down and doze off. The garage door slams open as per usual and my brother walks by. But the odd thing was my brother didn't say one word to me. He turned his head and smiled at me with no sort of inflection on his eyebrows. An open-eyed, ear-to-ear grin. I look at him oddly and just brush it off. I hadn't seen my brother all day and notice he's wearing a green shirt with his dark denim. The smile startled me because we hadn't been on speaking terms for a few months now. What was that about? 3 hours later, my parents get home making this huge racket, and I wake up. 10 seconds after my parents, my brother walks in. I turn to my mom and say, "He was just home." My mother dismisses what I said. I just picked him up from Vicente's house. He hasn't been home all day. And what is my brother wearing? A green shirt and dark denim. Very wild, those doppelgangers. I don't know. It's a bizarre phenomenon, and I'm not sure if what the causation for it is. Again, there can be many different reasons that these things can occur, but in cases like this last several stories just seem as though a spirit is just messing with people. I don't know if there's any other kind of rationale or reasoning behind why they may have happened. I don't know, but these sound like someone just really screwing with the head of the people witnessing it. And to what end? Is it to create fear? Is it a negative entity that wants to create fear, to weaken the aura, to cause a surrender of sorts so they can develop an attachment? And that certainly has is believed to happen in many demonic situations, or oppression, the old doppelganger things. So it's possible. But I'm not saying that all of these are dark and demonic, but they certainly don't seem to be, these last several don't seem to be much more than just really screwing with somebody's head. All right, no, I don't have enough time for this one, so I think that's about where we'll end end the story reading for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. But I hope you've enjoyed the show. And as always, I always enjoy bringing it to you. But I hope if you guys did hear, me ask the question, what do you think about that phenomenon that I was talking about before? Is there something to it? Am I way off base? Is there, layers and layers going on here? What are your thoughts? So if you have any reflection on that, or just want to throw an opinion, or if you've had something similar where you'd like to chime in on it, please let me know. But again, email paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So stick around, everybody. Jimmy Jean is coming up if you're listening on iHeart, TuneIn, or TFR Live. Stick around for Into the Microcosm, but it's my time to go. We'll be back tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Pacific, for more of the Portal, and I'll have Don with me, so nothing but trouble there. All right, love you all. Be good, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great night.
Truth Frequency Radio is your number one source for news and information without the...
All right, thank you guys from YouTube for checking this out, listening in. I usually launch the closing scene first, but I just want to make sure I had the lines clear for Jimmy to take over for Into the Microcosm. But thank you so much for being here. Love you all. Have a great night, and we will be streaming again tomorrow night here on YouTube, in conjunction with our TFR Live broadcast. So we'll see you then. You guys have a great night, and love you all, and take care.